Resilience Plus Rise, the podcast where resilience is not just a concept, but a lived experience. I'm your host, Thomas Carrier, a resilience coach, an ultra marathoner, and a relentless believer in the human spirit's ability to rise. This podcast is a companion to my book Resilience Plus Rise 26.2 Transformative Miles to Unleash Your Marathon of Life Mindset. Each episode is a raw, unfiltered dive into the stories of those who have faced life's hardest battles and emerged stronger. Today's guest, it's an honor to invite back Christabelle Joseph. One of my first statements was not a concept but a lived experience. Yes, she's gone through it. She has gone through what life has thrown at her, the hardest battles. Yeah, she talks about a couple of times OD'd and been to the hell and back and all these particular things, fueled by drugs, alcohol, you name it. And but for what? She was filling herself with emptiness. But as I've been saying in my podcast, our deepest of purpose comes from our deepest of wounds. The scars that we hold or we used to hold very closely shows what we are capable of. Without much further talk, Christabel, welcome to Resilience Plus Rise, the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's always an honor. It's always a pleasure to have these discussions with you. So thank you for this space, Thomas.
It is. It's wonderful. So, for the people who do not know much about you, you are executive male coach for males. But prior to that, you had to fight your own battles, a lot of your battles, to reach where you are. If you're open to it, would you want to take the audience? Although, guys, we already had this conversation more than a year back. But then again, for people, just to know that, you know what, life has battles. It's how you look on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're open to talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for this question. I feel like a lot of the time in our lives, we have gone through this, something we call the hero's journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
We really try to resonate, or we start to resonate when we start to initially look back at our journey and all of the challenges that we have, right? Of these really dark times, right? It can be, you mentioned a couple of these things, overdose, or it could be, a suicide attempt. It could be, abusive upbringing. It could be many things, right? That we have had to overcome to come to this place that we are now, right? To come into the person that we are now with the, you talk about this a lot, the resilience, right? We build up this strength, this warrior-like resilience within ourselves. And a lot of the time, a lot of people that have gone through hardships in their life, we tend to create now an identity around the hero's journey, right? Of, okay, I didn't choose this life, right? I didn't choose to be a hero or the chosen one or whatever it is, but here we are, and I'm being faced with all of these battles. And it's really interesting because what a lot of people don't realize, when we are choosing to be the hero, right? It is intentionally creating a villain, right? So when we are choosing to be the hero, in order to be the hero, there has to be a battle. There has to be evil. There has to be something that we are fighting against. And so unintentionally, we're actually programming ourselves to continue to create an enemy, to continuously create another challenge, because it feels so good to overcome that challenge. And so a lot of my past year has been this realization that, hold on, do I want to be a hero? Right? Has that served its purpose? Right? Have I been able to now acknowledge what it is to be a hero and create peace with no longer wanting to be the hero? Right? And being able to have harmony in just I am just here to create in this world. I'm here to contribute in this world. And I don't have to be the hero anymore. It's okay. I can put down my sword, right? There's no need to continuously create an enemy or a villain anymore, right? So having gratitude and appreciation for all of these challenges to have brought me to this resilience and this warrior energy that I always have, but at the same time creating a new condition where I no longer have to fight to receive what I desire.
Mm.
Right?
That's very profound. Quite, because I think so. I've had quite a bit of talks with many people, and yeah, people they talk about hero's journey, but this was I think believe this is one of the first times somebody has spoken about, yes, there has to be a villain also portray as a hero. And you mentioned a few elements like your gratitude and the changes that you've done. But again, the thought which came up to my mind is that if there is a villain and if you're ready to put your sword down, there also has to be something. In fact, I believe you have mentioned it at some point of time, is the concept of radical forgiveness. So, would you want to say anything on that?
Mm-hmm. I do feel like there has to be a level of, I wouldn't use the word forgiveness. I feel like the word, it has nothing to do with what has happened outside of you, right? It has everything to do with the identity you've created based on the things that have happened outside of you. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
we attach ourselves to this identity that, okay, I'm so resilient. I am, so strong. I'm so brave. I'm all of these things because, and we attach this because to our story. Look at all the examples of what I've lived in my life for me to have gotten to where I am now, right? And so this choice that we are in, this freedom of free will and choice, right? We aren't actually choosing in that scenario, right? We are becoming the byproduct of all of our stories, really, is
Mm-hmm.
what we are in our identity. So the real shift is when we can detach. And this, as you've known, with all of the death that has happened in my life in the past year, detachment has been the biggest lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying this, but detachment is, it's not about bypassing. It's not about being so deeply in love. It's not about not being so deeply in love with the world and with people and with life, right? With our experiences. It's about how can we allow that moment to exist for that moment, for the temporary, that that season that it is here for, and not judge it for the ending of that cycle, because nothing actually ever ends, right? We have this ideology that it ends, but death, right, is a part of a cycle, right? It is only a part of a cycle. And when we realize that there's no end or beginning, it's just a continuous arrival and a continuous transformation or evolution. Now we get to actually witness eternal love, not from just what is here in that moment, but the transcendence of the evolution of what that is in the next season, and to hold that love for every single part of it. So, the same way with our identity, right? It's not about ending our identity,
Mm-hmm.
no death of our identity. It's the completion of this cycle that's now
Cycle.
moving another phase, another season. And this level of detachment then is like, I can honor and acknowledge and appreciate what I have been through, the identity, all of the purpose that it served to bring me to where I am. And I can now be open to receive what my next contribution will be, right? Without this is who I am. So I'm going to do what I do. But what do I choose to embody? Right? What is my contribution in this world? And what do I choose to feel? Right? It always comes back to our emotion. right? What am I bringing into these experiences as my sacred contribution?
Wow. You know, this is so surprising because last night I just finished reading Neil Donald Walsh uh, in his books Conversation with God, and I was reading the final one, In Home with God, wherein he talks the same thing as that we are in this particular journey, but the challenge at times is that we hold ourselves to our identity, we hold ourselves to this journey, we hold everything, but we are not aware that what's on the other side. But when we are open, and it's exactly what you just mentioned, is that when we are open to detaching, the path becomes much more beautiful, and it's so wonderful. That's a beautiful way of putting across, which gets to the next point, is that now you've moved away from just the realms of the working a 9 to 5 job or whatever it is, and things like that, and you have settled in a space wherein you find your own belonging, and you have also become a coach. You're working for the betterment of the people around and everything. So if you would want to tell me a little more about what this coaching space is all about, who are the people who have been involved, and what's your gift to them?
Mm, yeah, beautiful. Thank you for this question. There is something called tantology. I hope I'm saying that right.
Scientology.
Tantology.
Okay, Tantology. Okay.
It's the study of death and transition.
Hmm.
And so a lot of my clients are executives, they're CEOs, they're leaders in the industry. A lot of them have had all of their successes business wise, right? They've made it, quote unquote, right? But there's this gap in between their emotions and their hearts. They have been in this performative space for a very long time and always, without even realizing it, become this people pleaser for the shareholders or the stakeholders, and continuously morphing what it is that they are building or creating to meet everyone else, right? And it's very rare to see a leader that is so in tune and confident in who they are, right? That they trust their auric field and their radiance, where everything reorganizes to meet them. And this is something that I teach called cause and effect. And a lot of the time, we become the effect of things
Hmm.
that happen outside of ourselves, right? And so, this deep study of universal laws, of not just with the law of cause and effect, there's the law of contrast, the law of duality, there's the law of balance, there's 28, 29 different universal laws and
Hmm.
the laws of hermetics. And so what I teach is based on energetic order, the order of how the universe works. So it doesn't actually change what is already happening, but what it changes is your perception and your perspective of the world around you. So when we are living in survival without even
Of
realizing that
course, yes. Hmm.
survival, right? A lot of the time, it's very easy to create a condition or an identity around this is just the way things are, right? How do we possibly see past experiences that we have not experienced, right? How do we actually enter this field of what is possible if we haven't actually experienced it ourselves, right? And this is where it's probably the most challenging part of entering the body, right? So our heart brain actually has about 60,000 more neurons than our brain. It's 60,000 times more powerful than our brain, right? So our heart actually has and holds memory that is independent from our cranial brain, which is incredible scientifically, right? If we really start to tap into the wisdom of our hearts, we're actually able to access wisdom that is beyond what we can conceive with our five senses that we have. And so what I teach has a lot to do with neuroscience and neuroplasticity and actually reprogramming our neural pathways, not from a place of our experiences and our traumas, right? It's how we are responding from what we choose. So a lot of the time we're in reaction, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is literally a reaction. It's acting again
Against. Mm-hmm.
based on our experiences and our traumas, right? This happened before. I need to protect myself now. I can't do this because last time I did this, this happened. And so to mitigate this, I'm going to do this instead. So I'm moving out of fear. I'm moving out of what I don't want to happen. But what if we, instead of move from what we don't want to happen, we move from what we actually desire to happen, right? What if we shift our lens and instead of from protection, we move from inspiration? We move from what we're actually inspired by.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Actually, that gets me as a beautiful segue to the next question is that, okay, now you talked about neuroplasticity and being in the space of being inspired, gratitude, etc., and being more heart centric rather than mind centric. If you have to take to a common man who may be so caught up in the survival mode, what could be around 3 to 5 elements that you would suggest them? I'm not asking about advice, but suggest to them that try doing this or try doing that to elevate themselves from just mere existing to living. What
Mhm.
would those be?
I feel like one of the first questions that I think is key that anyone can shift is instead of asking why, we ask, what is this happening for? Not why
Beautiful.
is this happening?
Hmm.
What is this happening for? And just from that little shift, when we go into what for and we go into the feeling of it, every emotion is purposeful. It's not about the story. If we're asking why something is happening, our ego is right there, ready to rock, ready to give whatever evidence, every
Sure.
proof why this thing is happening. But when we go into the emotion, what is this happening for? Okay, this is allowing me now to feel, okay, this is allowing me to feel maybe unworthy, this feeling of unworthiness, maybe this feeling of abandonment, maybe this feeling of fear that's here. Okay, from here, now I can actually see that it has nothing to do with the story. There's just an emotion that's been stuck that I have to process. So instead of asking why, I would always shift that to what for? What is this happening for?
Wonderful. That's so powerful. Anything else that comes to your mind?
That's a good one. And
Okay, fair, fair enough. Let's leave it over there. Let's leave it
the
over there. Yeah.
this kind of work and these questions, I think anytime that we lean in with curiosity
Hmm.
versus judgment, just in general, right? I always imagine like a child, you know, a child is conscious, but also unaware, right?
Hmm.
Also unaware of what is any kind of means of morality, right? They're just here to enjoy and
True.
to be curious and this wonder and this awe, and they're here to discover, right? And so if we almost see ourselves when we are unconscious or when we are unaware and we are curious instead of judging, we see it almost as like this child that just doesn't know, right? How would you speak to this child? Right, is how you would almost speak to yourself, right? Is with this level of curiosity. Okay, I see that you're upset right now. Okay, let's talk about it, right? Let's go into it, right? What is this happening for, right? Okay, what possibilities are now here? How can we use our imagination, right? How can we be inspired by this, right? How can we create new ways around this, new possibilities, right? And so now it becomes this excitement, right? Instead of this like contraction that's there.
Beautiful. Loved it. And of course, when you're going in with that particular curiosity, and especially when you're talking to whether it's your inner child or whether you're talking to seeing it as a question that you're putting to a child, An element of or dollops of love also would be very much beneficial when you're approaching these type of questions rather than looking out for an answer, because we most of us we know that if you wait the answers will come, and it's not that you're driving towards it.
Mhm.
What are sorry, you got few programs which is happening now and few programs which is on the, so are there any projects that you would want to the listeners to know about that is coming up shortly or which is going on?
Yeah, totally. So I do have a 7-month intensive program that are
Hmm.
for executives and coaches and leaders. And a lot of obviously the work that I do are catered towards men, but I also do have women that are clients as well. A lot of that is focused on deeper addictions and more addictive vices. It can be sex or porn or drugs or alcohol, whatever it is that men or women are struggling with. That is a little bit more of an intensive program as it is one-on-one. But I do have something that I am actually launching. It'll be the week of April 13th, and it's
Hmm.
called the Executive Advantage. And so this is a limited space, limited capacity, my first time doing a group coaching container for just the fundamentals of what I teach.
Hmm.
And what this will allow is in the 6-week intimate containers for people to actually start to feel safe in their body, start to slowly understand how to transform some of this energy that has been stuck and stagnant for so long. We don't go into the depths of my one-on-one program, of course, but there is opportunity to work on that after. But for this, it is extremely powerful just to allow yourself to meet the power that is always within you. To, I was having this conversation with a friend, and he was like, I have everything already within myself. I said, yes, this is accurate information. You do have everything. However, we have not learned how to become available to receive all of the power within ourselves. And so that is what the 6-week program is going to allow you to tap into, is how to become available to this power that is already within you.
Beautiful. Guys, Christabel's information will be put down in the posts that I'm putting across, and do have a look onto it. Do connect with her. If you got any pressing questions or if you believe you need to explore more, reach out. She's always ready to make you understand what or take you to the journey that could be possible. So it's such always a choice. Just being mindful of the time. Is there any last minute again thought, suggestion, or advice, or something that you want to impart before we close this conversation?
I feel very complete. Yes. Thank you everyone for listening, for tuning in. Thank you, Thomas, for this incredible space. I just love seeing and witnessing your journey as well. And how many people that you've had on to this podcast now is incredible. And just the way that you are weaving in this world with, your heart and your genuinity and authenticity is, it's incredible. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christopher.